Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another session of Expand Your Horizon. Very excited to be here in the first session of 2024. And together with us, Sharon Handelman-Gotlib. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited and pumped to being the first one for 2024.
Yes, thank you very much for joining, Sharon. Sharon Handelman-Gotlib is the CEO and co-founder of Shela. We will soon hear the exciting story. I must admit that when we talked prior to this call, and you told me about the company and the vision and the story behind it, I was able to relate quite personally for various reasons, and maybe we can discuss it during the next hour. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Exciting hour is aheading us. I want to remind everybody that the chat box is open as of now. If you have any questions to Sharon, feel free to punch it in. We will keep the last 10-15 minutes of the session for Q&A. And yes, I think without further ado, we can kick it off, Sharon. So again, thank you for joining. And yeah, maybe the first thing we can do before we start talking about femtech and what is femtech and what Shela is all about, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. And I always like to say it really wanted to be, we're talking virtually, of course, but to be as open and as a discussion as possible. So at any time, anybody who has a question or kind of to direct it, please just let us know, and I'd happy to do that. And I'll start really with introducing myself. I'll share just a few slides about that, make it very easy, and show off with my mid-journey skills. And so here we go. As I said, thank you for having me and being the kickoff for 2024. And basically, I'd like to kind of walk you through my journey, my personal story into the founding, being a founder, the CEO, and into the femtech world, and what we do. And this kind of sums up everything on my personal, except the dog, that it's not in the picture, but this is who I am, and this is my family. I live in Israel. I'm married to Omer, my amazing partner for a very long time, and I have 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. And this is kind of the engine behind me. I also have a dog. And what we like to do is travel together around the world and visit new places. I started off, and this is kind of really what leads me throughout my life. I lived up in the northern side of Israel in a very peaceful village with very good, I'd say, growing up conditions, with parents who kind of allowed me to choose my way and always kind of decide what would be my path. So this, in essence, is what I do and what I believe in. There's always the poem of The Road Untaken by Robert Frost, saying which one, and to take the one which is less common or the one less popular. But for me, it's no matter what you choose, it's the right path to choose. And even if you find unexpected things or the things you wouldn't expect you to do, they will lead you to the next milestone and the ones which are more important for you in life. And that's what I tell my kids. Choose. You can always play around. You can always be flexible about it, and you'll get to where you need to be. And that's kind of, again, what leads me in my life. So I started off my career in a very large pharmaceutical company, leading in numerous managerial roles, then fell in love with the notion of digital health with innovation. So I switched over to the second largest HMO in Israel, led the innovation, being part of the innovation in the Israeli ecosystem. And somewhere in between that and a very interesting biz dev role in another large global corporate world, I came across, again, the picture of this random kind of path. I came across a post on Facebook. It was the midst of COVID. Everybody was in lockdown. and everyone's super depressed about life, not being able to see anybody or talk to people. And the post said, who wants to join me on building and establishing the femtech ecosystem in Israel? As I said, I've been working in innovation and health innovation specifically, and I was at a very kind of moment, stuck. What is femtech? Why don't I know the meaning of the word? I started digging in. Of course, I said yes. I started digging in, and I realized that that is what I should be doing. And the rest is history, but I'll stop for a moment here and say that this kind of brings me, that's the jumpstart to my next kind of chapter in this discussion of my next kind of step of what is femtech and what do I actually do today.
Yeah, maybe before we jump into the femtech and Shela, can you share with us a little bit maybe about the things that you do outside of work, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Sure. So work takes a lot of my time, and I have four active kids, but kind of the things that I like is into extreme. I'm a long distance runner, and so I run marathons and beyond that, swim and cycle. Extreme sports, which would include skiing and stuff like that, is of my favorite. And I like to hang out with friends and family. My favorite thing would be a very good cup of red wine, specifically red wine. Music as much as possible. So that's kind of where I fill my time, my downtime, or where I get my energy, and bring it all together into my career and to the big people world.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And last question before we move on, the same question that we ask all entrepreneurs that join us. What are the two things that Google wouldn't know about you if I Googled your name?
So he wouldn't know that, as I said, I like to drink good wine and kind of hang out with my friends and explore new places around the world. It's always a challenge of finding one new place every year, the ones that are less traveled, and to get to know the kind of local culture, the local things that are going on. It's always the way I like to see things and experience. I am also very passionate about indie music. So these type of music festivals and outings are the ones that I seek out more than the usual.
Yeah, well, it brings all kind of other questions. But if you had one choose to, from all the places you visited in your life, you had to choose one place to fly to tomorrow, where would you go?
The Azore Islands, absolutely.
Azore Islands.
Yes, they're in between Portugal and the Americas. They're very interesting and very different islands. We spent there almost 3 weeks, and we had an amazing time. I'd go back to there, and of course, there are so many other places that I've never been to. So if you ask me what next, I choose Mongolia, probably. I choose a trek in Africa. I'd go to South America, which I haven't been to many of the countries there, and probably kind of go through a trek in hiking somewhere or doing some kind of a scientific experiment in the Arctics. So,
well, a good wish list.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's jump into the content, and you wanted to talk to us about femtech. You didn't know what it was when you saw the Facebook post, so help us understand what it is, and obviously also Shela and the new message that it brings to the world.
Of course. So this is my kind of showing off my journey. I'm joking, but this kind of also, again, the next technology and the next things and the opportunities that it brings to the table. And as I said, coming strong, always being ahead of a career and trying to seek out new potential, new areas, learning every time, every step of my career. As I said, I saw that phrase and it frustrated me that I didn't know what it is. and coming from inventing so many areas in health or trying to seek out new opportunities, I said, how is it possible that we women are so advanced? I mean, we're all with our mobile phone, we're all connected. We're 51% of the population in charge of 80% of health decisions, yet the solutions, the services, the answer to our questions are simply faced with a closed, shut door. The more I dug in, the more I was frustrated, and the more I realized that we are not being addressed as equal to health solutions, to health needs, that we are unmet needs, not even acknowledged. Our solutions are based on crazy. I'll show you a little bit of what I was astonished to find out. And I said, okay, this needs my support. I can do something here. I can try and make a dent. And that's what I've been doing in the last 3 years. So being very, very active in the Israeli ecosystem, then expanded that into the Asian and specifically into the Japanese femtech ecosystem, kind of being part of that, and again, on a global basis. So what is femtech? Let's start from the definition, and why do we need that definition? Femtech, by definition, is solutions and technology that improve and support women's health and well-being. Why do we need that? Why do we need something specific for femtech as opposed to mentech? Why don't we see that in health? Because the reason is simple. Up until a few years ago, every clinical study, every solution was built upon a very, very simple prototype. And it was called a male subject. So any drug development, any device created, or most of them, I'm being very generalistic, but go with me with the kind of the trend, was developed for many reasons by a male prototype. So when a clinical study was done, women were excluded because of many, many reasons. But if women are excluded, and if the prototype is a very specific person, a white, average age of a male, then by default and by definition, it will not address the different needs of women. And we are different biologically, physiologically, in so many other aspects. We're so many different, and our needs were unmet and unaddressed. The other reason was the fact that the ones in charge of the development of things and the ones in charge or owning kind of owning the world of funding and the VC world, the capital, the money, was owned by men. So topics were addressed by the ones they knew, and topics that were for women weren't just something to be addressed. And it took a long time and kind of a long evolution of things to be able to discuss things that bother us as women. So women health challenges are the fact that we lack of data. We didn't have the data because clinical studies were just ignoring women for many, many years. Lack of education, social taboo, and I'll pause on that in a minute. Lack of government priority, and funding, as I said before. So let's talk about social taboo. Menopause, endometriosis. I'm throwing out here some words of topics, even pregnancy issues and challenges in pregnancy, which I'll speak in depth in a few minutes, weren't things to be discussed because they were taboo. And if you don't discuss, you don't realize that's an issue. And you don't realize that it's an issue with almost every person that you know, because if you're a man, then you either have a partner, wife, a daughter, a mother, a friend, a colleague, who are facing those kind of very, very general and by default issues of menopause. Endometriosis is a condition, a very severe condition that impacts a woman, and it's 10% of population. I'll shock you with information about endometriosis in a minute.
Maybe before we jump into the statistics of the different challenges and issues, can you give one or two very specific and concrete and real examples so people understand, mainly men, I think women would understand, mainly men, where it's very clear that something was designed by men, but it's completely losing on the kind of like the female perspective?
Sure. The most, I think, easy one to comprehend are heart conditions. When we think of a heart symptom of a heart attack, what would be your first reaction? How would you describe that? Just show me with a mimic.
I don't know, pain in my left arm.
In your left arm, and what even more? Here, right?
Pressure in the chest.
In the chest. You'll feel the pressure in the chest. For women, and that's every Hollywood movie that shows a scene of a heart attack will show you the pause, the heart pain, the chest pain, and then you rush into a hospital, right? For women, these are different symptoms. It can be lower back pain, it can be sweat, it can be nauseous, so other symptoms. And when you go to the doctor with those symptoms, which weren't as you learned in curriculum, or don't acknowledge that for many reasons. First, as a woman, you say, okay, if I'm feeling kind of fatigue, I'm feeling dizzy, nauseous, then it must not be a heart attack symptom. I'm just tired, or whatever reason it is. So let's ignore it. So we ignore it, and then we go to a doctor, and they ignore it because it's not what they're used to be thinking of as kind of the lineup of things. And then if you're finally admitted, you'll get a 10-minute more waiting time in the queue. And then the devices themselves are designed for men. So this is just one example, a shocking one. It takes everything to do with that, and the medication and the protocols are fit to the male body. That's why the rates of adherence to many of the things for women are totally off. And it's only now, we're just now checking those and reevaluating and kind of adjusting or readjusting and reamending those kind of issues. That's one example.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind, and again, speaking from my wife's profession and experience, if you think about another example, which is how women give birth. You know, I don't know when, but the way, even the physical position in the room is relatively new from the last 100 or 200 years, because it made it comfortable for the male doctors to service the women, where 200 years ago, people gave birth in a completely different way. And even today, when people go to give birth in a kind of like a natural setting, it looks completely different.
It is, and it also brings me, I agree. I mean, there's the different setting, there are pros and cons. I stick actually more to the clinical one, but that's a different topic altogether, or find the way in between. But I'll give another shocking statement. Unfortunately, the speculum, which is the one that we're used to, the same kind of device or mechanism that women go through, also through labor and all that, was designed by male doctors, and the ones that they were tested upon were slaves. So shocking and terrible, really. The history of those things, the invention and the evolution of OB-GYN is built on that. So did those clinical study women had a right to talk about their feelings, how they went through the studies, the research, the invention kind of process? Absolutely not. Does that fit what we need? Probably not. But we're used to that as women, of not speaking up for too many years. And it's only now, that's exactly why we need the femtech, and we need women stepping up and saying, hey, that doesn't work for us. As you said, the way we give birth, it's up to us to decide where, how, what condition. Do we want to take an epidural? Do we need that? Is epidural on a personal level? Is it based on our body, our size, our weight, other biological parameters? No, it's a one size fits all, but that's changing gradually as we progress. So that's another good example. And again, the way things were built by men with a male thinking without listening to the voice of the customer. So we always hear, we're always talking business. You're a business company, a huge one, very successful. What's the voice of the customer? In women's health, we're just hearing it now, the voice of the customer. And talking business again, and going back to the potential, this means that it's a huge opportunity to be seized. Because up until now, we weren't considering it to be a good fit or a category. I'd hear VCs for many years saying, well, femtech or women's health is niche. That's always
niche for 51% of the population.
Bingo, exactly. How can you say by definition that femtech and women's health is niche if we're serving 51% of population? So you can say, so pregnancy is X amount of years or any other specific condition or challenge, but yet there is kind of a consensus or a huge opportunity for each one of those. If you talk about, let's say, menopause, which is a huge growing category for women, it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. 100% of those 51% of population, 100% will come across menopause. And even shocking enough, before that, we'll talk about perimenopause. It's something that wasn't spoken about until, let's say, 5 years ago. So these things are changing. The opportunity is out there, a huge one in many aspects, the well-being, the clinical, the offerings surrounding nutrition, so many things. It's just a matter of picking and choosing and say, hey, we can do this world much better for everybody, because 51% of population impacts the other 49% of the population and vice versa. So that's the whole theory in kind of 2 sentences.
Thank you.
It's always very important for me, aside from the health equity, aside from our well-being, from improving the health, from a business perspective, these are the trends. So we're talking about a huge market. You can see the spend, the amount of health funding versus only femtech on the right side of things. Look at the disproportional investment in funding or in innovation in that field. So that's an opportunity. I don't see it in the negative side. I see it in the positive side. There's an
just because the text is a little bit small, the blue one is the digital health and the red one is the femtech. So we see that the blue represent the money flowing into digital innovation, which is, I don't know, 10 times, 100 times larger than the money that flows into femtech funding.
Correct. And again, you'll say that if it's a general, it impacts women. But again, it is true to some extent, because if you do not consider the different biology, the different setting, and the different for minorities, regardless, even if it's, just even generally speaking, if you don't look at those, then it's pointless. And you're missing 50% of population. As of the example of heart attacks, as the example for migraines. And again, there are so many other examples that I can share. Migraines, women suffer at least 3 times more than men. Are migraines directed solutions to women? Less. So all examples would probably be valid, and of course, specifically for those conditions that for women, which weren't just discussed, as I gave the examples of endometriosis, menopause, and so many other conditions. So there's a world of opportunity. And I'd say it's not happily, if I gave this presentation 2 years ago, I'd say a blue ocean. Today, it's not a blue ocean because people have realized that, women and men, and are working on fabulous solutions, tech-driven, science-driven. And again, that leads me into why I joined where I am today and what kind of made me furious. And the reason that I really wanted to be part of this revolution and being the one to kind of support moving the needle is the fact that we're seeing technology and science going to so many fascinating places, but ignoring, again, this area. So I knew I wanted to talk about science, technology, precision, so many smart and sophisticated words, but to be focused for women, by women, if we can, and to make the difference. And kind of showing the categories, I love those. You can see the difference. And again, these are changing as we speak. So pregnancy and nursing dominating, reproductive, cycle management, menstruation, general health, menopause, again, a huge market with very, very, very small market share. These are numbers of Q2, 2022. If we see it, I'd say towards end of 2024, the numbers will be different. Cancer, oncology, longevity, those are areas which have the potential of higher growth. And that's where we're going to see the ones to dominate the future categories, hopefully. And again, another good news is you can see kind of where it started, and I wouldn't call it a revolution, but more evolution. At the year of kind of, you see where it is growing, starting from 2000, very small number of companies founded in the category. Look how the numbers grow. So from 2016, from 100 over to 1,400 at 2022. Huge numbers, huge different geography spread. I always like my example with the Japanese market, and a funny anecdote to that. When I entered my work, I work with a very large corporate Japanese company, started working with VCs there and with the local femtech communities and ecosystem. And I talked to business people and saying, listen, we know that Japan is kind of an aging society. Where are the solutions for menopause? How many are there out there? And they said to me, well, menopause is not an issue in Japan. Women don't have the hot flashes, because hot flashes is everything to do with menopause. And I was like, okay, it's a huge country, so many millions of women, and how many menopause solutions out there? Maybe 3 companies back in the day. So I come with that answer back to the clinicians that I work with here. I mean, leading experts in women's health, in aging, longevity, gynecology. And I said, listen, I got the interesting answer of menopause not being an issue because Japanese women don't have hot flashes. And I remember an eye-opening answer from a very strong and leading OB-GYN and a gynecologist saying, well, there are so many other symptoms that I'm sure they suffer from, so maybe hot flashes is not one of those, but others are definitely ones to be addressed. So one doesn't dismiss 50 other conditions that are a huge issue for women. And also the fact, again, I go back to the taboo, they're just not voicing their problems. Sure enough, 2 years fast forward, there are so many new companies and so many solutions, government policy making those changes as we speak, not only in Japan, but also in the UK, in the US, anywhere basically around the world, finally acknowledging that it's not only a health issue, but it's also an economic burden. Why? 1 out of every 4 women, that's a survey in the UK, published last year or a year and a half ago, 1 out of 4, at least 25% of women, when they reach the age of 50, because of menopause symptoms and the challenges that they encounter, 1 out of 4 considers to leave their job. At that age, we are at our peak of performance, the best in our professional career. We don't have younger kids anymore. We're free. We are capable of everything, yet those challenges block us. And that's what should be driving us also as businesses, as an economy. We cannot block 25% of women from fulfilling their dream, and we cannot afford not having those women drop out and drop off kind of the roster. So opportunities. I don't look at the downside of things. I look at the positive, the upside, and ways to kind of overcome the challenges. So that's kind of the Femtech, I'd say, chapter, the evolution, the revolution, and the huge opportunity. And what I say to women, wherever we meet, in any country that I come across, we hear the same. I mean, there's a consensus. Speak up. Know what you need to have physically, biologically, your issues. Speak up, talk. There, every week I see something new, a new topic that I wouldn't consider, just because we take it for granted, or we take it for granted that we shouldn't ask questions. Ask questions, find the ways to solve those, and make sure that you get what you want. That's Femtech, and for me, a very important kind of part of my career journey, and also my personal one as well. I mean, I see my son, we're talking about, I said something about postpartum, and he said, my 11-year-old said, postpartum depression, you mean? Mm-hmm. Because they're hearing that, they're voicing that, they're echoing that. That's a new generation, and they know better than what we know. And I'm happy that the next generation will find things easier for them. And that leads me, if you don't have a question, to what I do, and what brings me kind of very quickly out of bed in the mornings, and kind of the reason that I left a very comfortable, I'll say, I was very content with my career, and very happy with what I did, with my activities, with my life. And when my co-founders, my amazing co-founders, I'll show them in one or two slides in a minute, they kind of ambushed me and said to me, Sharon, come join us. Come join us, build a company, and lead it to act upon the CEO. And because the strong team and the opportunity and the fact that I wanted to make sure that I walk the talk of Femtech and the challenges that I just mentioned, I said, I'm in. And that's what made me make my biggest move, I'd say, of my career, going into entrepreneurship, becoming a founder, a CEO of a company, stepping out of every comfort zone I had in my life. I've been in this journey for almost a year, and I do not regret it for 1 second. And I find it to be the best thing, the smartest move that I did. So what does Shela do? I spoke about the career and the areas, the categories, and I think the most essential one for most people in life is the joyous moment of bringing new life to the world. And even in that, we sing and we find it so obvious. We know that it's complicated. No pregnancy, and Shai, we talked about that also in our previous discussion, is the fact that it's not as simple. And it really entails very, very significant risk. In the US, only every 12 hours, a woman unfortunately dies, and babies die. And 1 out of 4 pregnancies entail a significant complications. That's huge, 25%. And again, we've seen many solutions, many startups, but the numbers are not driving down. It's still 1 of 4. The solutions are still a cookie cutter, as I say, solutions, or ones that do not support the reduction of the risk and the fact that we want to see the outcomes of a healthy pregnancy and a healthy delivery. And of course, from a market standpoint, the numbers are huge. So that's what we are focusing on in Shela. if driving down those numbers, providing health equity for women that may not have the best the health insurance plan in place, but to ensure that every woman try to bring that solutions, affordable, intuitive, and personalized solutions for pregnancy complications. We're talking about preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, etc. These are the ones that we're tackling at Shela. These are the ones kind of the major significant gaps that we're entailing. There are only solutions, very specific ones. We're not encompassing advanced technologies, new ways of using science. I'm throwing out buzzwords like microbiome, multi-omics, machine learning, AI, data-driven solutions. These are the ones we're still not seeing enough, and that's what we're trying to do, not only in Shela, but everywhere. And I think to emphasize that more than anything, we're always talking about women's health. I don't care about women. I care about a woman, her needs, her wants, her biology, her preferences. That's what we're focusing on, changing that into precision health. This is the theme.
Maybe just going back to the previous two slides. So can you dig a little bit deeper into the main root causes? There are many reasons, but what are the main root causes that you're focusing on, just to better understand why these things are happening and what are the reasons that they happen?
So some of them are genetically, and some are still unknown. I mean, what we're trying to understand is to identify those pregnancy complications. So gestational diabetes or preeclampsia or preterm birth, some of them are still unknown, or some of them are considered specific modules to define them, but some are being missed. And if you're coming with the historical background, then you'd know that a woman is with a certain specific risk. But if it's a first pregnancy, a first time experience, then how would we know that if we don't have the backup? And many of the women only have 1 or 2 children throughout their pregnancy and kind of reproductive stage of life. Then how would we know that if you don't have enough solutions or offerings to check that and diagnose that properly? Many of these conditions we're talking about, those specific pregnancy complications, are not necessarily genetic. I mean, genetic screening is something that we know of. It's easy to detect specific areas like Down syndrome, 18, it's called the 18 syndrome, which is an horrific outcome, which I know of personally, and others. And the others are just, we consider them again as it is what it is. Some women will have gestational diabetes. And what we were taught is that, okay, so we'll have gestational diabetes or preeclampsia or we'll have a baby, maybe a little sooner, maybe according to what was expected, the delivery date. But after that, that's the end of things. What we weren't taught is that pregnancy has a very clear and direct correlation to the long-term health pathway and outcomes. And what happens in pregnancy will tell in a very good way how your future of health will look like. So preeclampsia has high correlation
of the women or the newborn?
Of both, but even just for the women, let's go with that only. Gestational diabetes, if a woman has gestational diabetes, higher probability for type 2 diabetes. Preeclampsia, higher probability for future cardiovascular or metabolic issues. We're not taught that. So we're not trained to diagnose, to treat it earlier in time, and maybe even prevent.
So actually, I think it's on your next slide. It's 4 main complications. So you're saying, maybe I'll play it back in my own words and tell me if I got it right. First, all these conditions are not genetics, and you need to be able to screen them, identify them, and treat them as early as possible to remove pregnancy complications, okay? And the second thing that you're saying, that if you don't diagnose them early enough, and if you don't treat them well enough, not only that they increase the risk of pregnancy complication, they also increase the risk of future health complication of the women. So for both these reasons, it's very important to specifically on those four, and as you said, there are probably many more, but specifically on those four, to be able through the technologies that you developed, and you'll tell us about that in a second, to clearly monitor, identify, screen, and choose how to treat women based on those four possible complications.
Correct. And I'll speak, well, I'll take a zoom out for a minute. I mean, we've all seen the genetic, the genome projects on a global basis, and the fact that we used to scientifically, and again, it's a new, and I can talk about that also for at least an hour. We thought it would be kind of the thing to revolutionize everything. And we realized once we had all the sequencing and the mapping and everything that it took us to a specific point, but it was a time for a new era, which is the multi-omics, adding in microbiome, adding in other technologies like proteomica, metabolomica, stuff like that, because genomics tell a story, a good one, but adding in what happens in the microbiome in a woman's body, in their biology, is the complementary and tells a stronger and personalized story. And if we're talking about precision-based, personalized solutions, precision and personalized medicine, it brings in multi-omics, and that's kind of our technology. So we're bringing it specifically for women. So you're correct. We not only want to detect those challenges and complications and say, okay, you have it. We want to prevent those. And if not to prevent, at least to manage it at best, and to reduce the risk and the complications that it entails. And as you pointed out, rightly so, two at least. One for the woman herself, and the second one is for the fetus and for the newborn. So yes, those complications have a result, and they will impact not only the woman, but they will impact the newborn, short, midterm, and long term. If we're able to focus on those solutions, we'll be able to bring a lot of health equity for many others in the world.
Yeah. So we want to keep some time for a question at the end. So maybe if you can take the next 5-6 minutes to walk us through the specifics of your company and technology, and what does it mean? If I'm a woman, what kind of solution do you offer me?
Sure. So this is kind of my amazing team that I always like to show, not only that they're the smartest ones and also just the nicest people, starting with Professor Yoram Luzon, Dr. Adi Eshel, Abitzur, and Professor Henri Koren. What we bring is, again, as I said, we bring a platform for a woman using a two-step kind of approach. We have the ability by our technology to predict the pregnancy complications super early as week 12. We will provide.
How do you do it? You have sensors, you have blood samples, or what do you use as an input?
So our inputs are based on two: clinical data. So it's data that either a woman or the clinician can fill in. Those give us the first triage and screening. Based on that, we ask for a woman to have specific testing, again, a multi-omics testing. The biomarkers are either by blood testing or using microbiome, different ones. So I won't go into all of those because it's super. It's not complex, but it differs. It can be vaginal microbiome, it can be gut microbiome, it can be saliva, so spit, that eventually can give us the biomarkers. And once we have that, we know the risk score. And then we do the recommendations of the precision solution. So the precision based on that score and the biological profiling, we tell each woman what should be her precision-based recommendation pathway, medication, nutrition, care pathway. We add in also behavioral elements, etc. We're very advanced one, and hopefully drive down the complications and preventing the complications from occurring. So that's kind of in a very high level nutshell what we do. And these are kind of our assets and what we bring to the table. So we've conducted several clinical studies. We have patents in place. Our prediction modules are super advanced publications and strong partnerships in Israel and in the world. And I'll say, if we go back again, so that's what we do. And if we go out on a zoom out, because I'm left with 1 minute before opening to questions and discussion, this is just coming out of, this is just from the last, I'd say, month or two. So Amazon CTO came out with 2024 trends. I love him for that. Predicting the femtech is to set become a major trend in coming years, and precision. So thank you, because we are femtech, we are women's health, and also precision. I didn't pay him to sell for Shela for equity. First Lady Jill Biden to lead initiatives in the field. The economic burden. These are the trends. We're seeing that as a huge opportunity, and now it's time to make sure that we capture that, we solve the issues, and bring the solutions out there. Our bigger vision, where we are, what we want to do, is to provide health equity not only for pregnancy, but also for the long term. And as we see and as we say, it's time to give birth to a wiser era of maternal journey, safer, more predictable, and healthier. Not only for that, but for the longer term and longer duration.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Sharon. Very, very eye-opener and very insightful. A couple of questions that are coming in, and let's try to see if we can cover all of them. One question is around the possible collaboration between femtech companies and maybe Shela in particular, and large organizations like Orbia. One thing that I don't know if I have mentioned to you in the past, but Orbia was listed as one of the world top companies for women by Forbes for 2023. So, you know, we're trying to make Orbia a good place for women to work for, and we've been recognized for that, and there are various KPIs why we received that. So one question that came in, could there be a possible collaboration where somehow these type of technologies, and you can talk about Shela, or you can talk more broadly, are offered to women by the employer and not necessarily by the country health system?
Great question, and it's one of the leading drivers. And of course, that I can speak specifically for Shela, and of course, for generally speaking, we're seeing that trend very much growing. Of course, the one leading the trend and this kind of notion is, of course, US. We see companies, employers offering their women employees new technologies, new solutions, new services. For two reasons. One, because you want to be attractive, right? If you were considered to be leading companies for women, you want to attract more women because we're better, and we're good at what we're doing. Then you need to be attractive. By offering those solutions, women-driven solutions, you'll get more women, and of course have loyalty because it's that. And as an employer, you want women to stay healthy. It just makes more sense in so many, in any way, in any kind of channel you think of. And by offering those solutions to your employees is guaranteeing that you have healthier women physically and emotionally. So we're talking about both. Let's say if you implement a Shela solution, you offer that a small test. Again, our technology varies. I mean, we can go about that. We're not talking about business models now, but offering that and enabling those solutions, women can have an earlier prediction and detection of pregnancy complications and just lead pregnancy and long-term health way better. So yes, it's definitely the right track, the right route to choose. And I think employers are the first ones to also adopt, leading ones will be the ones to adopt Shela solutions and other women's health femtech solutions. So yeah.
And the tests that you require are available in every country in the world. So if I don't know, if I'm in Brazil or Mexico or India, and I sign up for a Shela solution, you can tell me what type of tests I need to run, and then it's mostly available in many countries?
Not yet. We're still early stage, and also in those specific countries, this requires regulation and approvals, the FDA or equivalent. Once we have those and attain those approvals, they will be able to be out there in the market. And it's exactly what we're working on. Strategic partnerships with leading health organizations in the various countries and working through the approval of our solutions, our technology in different levels. I mean, we have a leeway of how to play it out. And once they're out there, they will be very easily deployed in the systems, or can be easily deployed. So yes.
So you mentioned that you already are, let's call it, available, for a lack of a better word, in Israel, in Japan, and where else?
We're not available there. In Japan, where we haven't even entered clinical studies. We're working on our very significant clinical studies. We are working already on our approvals. And again, on our well-being solutions, I didn't go into the deep depth of our solution and offerings. In some, we can go about it tomorrow morning. In some, it will take the time of the regulation. So once we get the approvals, then it's kind of the market access and the regular way of marketing, finding partnerships and securing those and going out there. So technically, we have the modules in place. Can we go out tomorrow? No, we need the time, we need the approvals, we need the right partners, but that's exactly what we're working on now.
Cool. One question that's coming in regarding the endometriosis, if you can, I think we skipped one slide that talks about that, so people were curious about the statistics that you were sharing, and maybe also explaining a little bit what it is, because maybe not many people understand what is it. Maybe they know it in their own local language, but they don't know what it is. So if you can just say what it is in 2 sentences, and then share the statistics that are that were shocking to me.
Sure. I'll skip the presentation and just walk you through. So, astonishing enough, endometriosis affects in kind of in the reproductive kind of age, 1 out of 10 women, 10% of population. Up until, again, a few years ago, and look it up, Google the definition or the conditions, they were ignored. It took, in average today, I think it's a little lower than that. I don't have, again, and it varies from country to country, 7.5 years to diagnose endometriosis. It's pain, unbearable. The symptoms, again, vary from women to women. It can be pain in intercourse, through menstruation, and I won't go into the definition of what it is. It'll take you a few more minutes to kind of portray that. But the fact that it impacts 10% of population, the fact that it took up until now 7.5 years to diagnose, that's alarming as is. And most women were kind of directed to, oh, it's in your head. It's probably a mental issue. Very shocking. And it took a lot of voice to be voiced out very loud by women. Again, and many women today are speaking louder and clearer. It's not a mental issue. It's a physical condition. That's an infection and of just things that go on differently biologically for 10% of the population. And the good news is today that even just in the half a year, in the last 6 months, I've been seeing more and more solutions addressing endometriosis, from the diagnostic, from the treatment, medication, and infrastructure, you name it, it's out there. So first, it got the attention. we're talking about it. We're acknowledging that it affects 10% of population. Second, we're addressing the solutions. It's out there, it's important, and we're seeing science-driven, technology-driven solutions, amazing ones. I can point out a few of those that are out there, mainly driven out of, I've seen solutions coming out, strong startups coming from the US mainly, a few in the UK and other countries, also in Israel. There are companies addressing those challenges. So that's a good example. 10% of population, 7.5 years of agony until diagnosing that. It's really agonizing. I can't express the feeling and the frustration of the pain of women and the humiliation of going from doctor to doctor saying, listen, I have a problem. And I can speak of other silent diseases and conditions, but we're running out of time. I'd be happy to address that if anybody has a question specifically or wants to be, so I can point out to other kind of areas or knowledge resources. I'm on LinkedIn. You can share my email or send me others, and I'd be really happy to address and promote whatever is needed.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And unfortunately, our time is almost up. We could have talked for much longer. Again, many of the things that we discussed have I've experienced them. Well, not I, but close family members. I have experienced them firsthand. My mother and my wife, and so good to see that the progress is being made on many fronts. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know being a CEO founder and a company founder and a CEO is very demanding, and an hour with us is an hour that you don't invest anywhere else. So thank you very much for taking the time. I would conclude with just proposing that if we can do anything to help, we're active in many countries. We're active in the medical domain in some ways. So let us know if we can help. I'll share your email address if people want to contact you directly. So yeah, and that's it. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. You have a
thank you.
big challenge, but I hope you wake up in the morning and understand that you make the world a better place.
Thank you so much, and it's really important for me. So although the other task that I have, talking about women's health, talking about making this world better. I know you're doing that on a daily basis. For me, it's priceless. And thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much.